voices. It's red. That means stop. It's stopping.
I know, it's weird. Well, if you think about, in the old studios, the recording light would be red, right? It would be flashing red.
We've definitely said this before, yeah.
Well, look, we won't talk about the Soul Asylum conversation we're just having. We talk about Soul Asylum a lot.
Weirdly, a weird amount.
Yeah.
Almost as much as Tangerine Dream.
Right.
Almost as much. But I will say, when you mention Soul Asylum, well, to young kids, they don't know what that is. You're right. It's an
They
older...
just know Runaway Train.
Right. That's the thing. Or if you mention the Flaming Lips, like my vision of the Flaming Lips is on the Oh My God tour with the trailer. We've said this on the we don't need to say this again. But anyway, there's like a whole different version of the Flaming Lips that people know about.
And for me, it's Here It Is. It's even older, that first record.
Yeah. That's an EP?
No, it's a full-length record.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's a great record. It's their best record.
It's dark.
With the
It
hair.
is.
Yeah,
The photo.
just the photo with the, where they...
insane hair.
Yeah, they looked like hippies. It was really revolutionary at the time. It was like, wow, these guys look like 70s guys. These guys look like Grand Funk Railroad.
What was it? Telepathic surgery? Is that what we really liked, Jim? We're kind of into that. Or it was In a Priest-Driven Ambulance. That's when they changed. In a Priest-Driven Ambulance.
Yeah, those, I can't remember those. Yeah.
Because Telepathic Surgery was the last record with the drummer. I think it was the last record as a 3-piece. Wasn't that with Shaved Gorilla? We got a gorilla and shaved it and bought him a motorcycle.
I don't remember. I don't know.
I just heard a thing about Nick Drake, Pink Moon.
He's one of those guys.
Yeah, but like talking about a friend of his, when they heard Pink Moon, it was like, this is the sound of madness. This is a person who is no longer mentally well. They could not listen to the lyrics and the songs. It was like, when somebody has lost their mind, they don't make sense. They say things and it doesn't make sense. And everyone thinks of it as this beautiful poetic record, but it's like her perspective as someone who knew him was just like, I can't listen to that record. It's the sound of my friend going mad. It was very creepy. Why did I say that? It was because of where everything changed, right? I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It is hard to have your friends. Yeah, I don't know. That would happen. Like, they'd start to get concerned.
Yeah.
There are songs that friends of mine write, and I'm like, uh-oh. Where are we going here? Welcome to Lost and Found and Rewound, where two brothers and their closest lifelong friend talk about movies and how much they love one another. I'm Chris Lost.
I'm Found Jim.
And I'm Roadmaster Rick Rewound.
Roadmaster.
Yeah, Roadmaster.
Not Roadcaster.
No.
Is Roadmaster a title?
Yeah.
For what? I guess I'll have to look it up.
Well, ground everything to a halt there. I'm running low on titles, let's just say.
Certainly sounds like, because I think you repeated the same title between the last Fast Forward and the last main episode.
Yeah, see, that was not, I've been trying to take notes and keep track to make sure I don't repeat myself.
And I definitely repeated the same intro to both. So, like, all this talk of dementia and memory, and like, we're like, oh, maybe you didn't repeat the same title. I don't know. I definitely repeated the same intro.
I think you repeat your confusion.
I am confused. But I did want to, we got a listener comment. And so anytime a listener comments on any of our social media, I read the comment.
This is a very scary moment in the podcast.
It just says, at MacUQuiver said on a Bad Ronald post, I don't even know what it was on. He said, I thought this movie was called Weird Harold. So thank you at MacUQuiver. That's the first comment we've gotten on our social media. Probably over a year.
That the weird comment thing, like the scary comment, someone came to my office yesterday and said, this guy, I can't remember the name. He was like standing in the hallway here in front of your office, and he had two women with him, and he was asking where you were. I think his name was Ron, and he seemed like he knew who you were. I told him, well, you weren't here. If your door's not open, you're not here. And then he said, but he might be in this classroom or that classroom. And I was like, I have no idea who that was. Who just came into the building looking for me, you know?
He had an AR-15.
Yeah, and I was like, maybe don't tell people where other places I could be. That's scary. Isn't it kind of scary? It seems scary, doesn't it?
Could be fun though. Could be an old friend.
Oh
looking
yeah,
for
no,
you.
it totally was somebody, and but this guy couldn't quite remember who they were and everything. It was some older guy and 2 other women. I was just like, who could that be?
Charles.
Oh, it was
Charlie
M. Started with an M.
It was a cult. I had a fun game, but I tried to play it today, and I don't think it works. I watched Pineapple Express because Rick was so giddy about Pineapple Express. I think on an episode.
Yeah, we were talking about what's his name. You were going through what's his name.
Oh yeah, Danny McBride.
Yeah, Danny McBride.
And I was like, who are we? Dale Denton. There's 3 characters: Dale Denton, Saul Silver, and Red. and I was trying to align us to those characters. And I don't think it works.
I need to know the actors. Yeah, I don't know their actual names.
Dale Denton would be, what's his name? The cuddly stoner.
What I find amazing is you remember the character names.
No,
and
I wrote it down.
Okay, you wrote the character. Okay, because the actual actors are famous and but the characters.
Who's the cuddly, curly-headed?
Seth
Rogen. And then there's
James Franco,
and then Danny McBride.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us align.
Gary Cole is in that movie.
Gary Cole's great in that movie.
I've met Gary Cole.
Wow.
Oh yeah, because he's
an
alumni.
Yeah, he was what do they call that? He was a commencement speaker. He's a very cool guy too. He was great.
He's funny as hell.
He's funny and like chill hippie like, which is weird. Like he seems, that cool thing, right? His characters, right? A lot of times he plays those pretty cool thing, but he was a little more soft and hippie-ish. It was interesting.
That's just how all actors are.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, he's not playing a character.
They're acting when they're in real life.
In real
I
life.
think
Okay,
that's
that too. It's like this. Yeah, yeah.
He's the father from Ricky Bobby that puts the cougar in the car, and he plays Mike Brady in the Brady Bunch movies, and he's great.
He was in Frank's Wild Years. I talked to him about that. The play, the actual play at Steppenwolf that Tom Waits did before the record. It was like a stage play.
We saw it,
yeah,
with our parents. That was great. Yeah, it was like a little tiny. Was it Briar Street Theater? I think.
I thought it was It wasn't Steppenwolf.
Well, maybe it was connected, but it was the little theater. It was the small. I think it was Briar Street. I don't know, but it was a tiny theater with the live band on little balconies on either side of the stage.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really tiny theater, and they did a parade right at the beginning. The band played. They marched down the center aisle and went up and sat up in the boxes, I think.
Yeah.
And they played through the whole play, but they walked. I seem to remember them walking down. That was really cool.
It's also what Peter Gabriel's band did on the security tour.
Oh.
They walked into what was the UIC
pavilion or circle?
Yeah.
What was it?
Yeah, it's like the pavilion, right? It was UIC by then, right? Pavilion.
It's like cats when the cats come down the aisle and mess with people's hair.
Yeah,
Blue Man Group,
which is ending its run, right? I heard, yeah.
What are you talking about?
In Chicago.
Oh,
and it might be New York too.
Not in Vegas, though.
Not in Vegas.
Well, let's go to I Apologize, our famous segment. I've got an apology for Jim.
Oh, no.
And our entire audience for my editing in the Miracle Mile episode. So at the end of the episode, we're talking about the episode being over and how everybody needs to go to sleep. And then Jim says, quote, "Forget everything you've just heard and go back to sleep. Click," end quote. And then I let the episode go on for like 2 more minutes to do like a Ghost in the Darkness joke. And then as I put the quote in the beginning of the episode, he was just saying the thing that the guy says on the phone.
Yeah.
Right.
So I should have just ended it right there.
Man.
I blew it. Now for a new segment called You Apologize, and this is for Rick.
Oh, no. Wow.
On our Godzilla -1 episode, Rick talks about the recent Alex Van Halen interview where he promotes his new book. And I listened to that. I watched that interview. I watched a similar interview. And Alex actually says multiple times in the interview that he doesn't consider the Hagar eras of the band Van Halen.
Really?
And
wow.
You must have heard that, Rick, and just omitted that detail from the interview. So anyway, I'm not going to make you apologize, but feel like...
Can't those guys get along, man?
That was the real truth of it. It was just like, oh, man, what do you... what now? This is a big beef you're taking. Like, you're still holding a beef against Sammy Hagar?
My question is how many millions of dollars? What is it right here, right now? Well, like, think about how much money that era brought in too.
Way more than the
Yeah,
Rock.
like how many houses, how many drum kits does he have from the Hagar era? It's not Van Halen. It's like
Musicians don't pay for their instruments after a certain amount of time. He's not buying drum kits with any amount of money.
No, his collectible. He's getting collectible ones.
Yeah,
Like
I
the
think
Ringo set or something.
I'd love to see Alex Van Halen cranking on a Ringo set. Ah, crap! I broke it again.
I just watched a 48-minute rig rundown of Stephen Perkins. It was actually really depressing because he's like, it's at the very beginning of the tour that they just stopped. And he's like, oh, and Barry's just so, amazing. There's so much love and energy in this band. And he's like, and when I played, like, Barry will come up and play these congas or these bongos, and I'll play with them. We play really well together. And I'm like, that's not going to go well, buddy.
He played with him after multiple breakups, right? The drummer.
Yeah, he was in
Porno for Pyros, right? Yeah, so he's just a pushover.
I was going to say Toys for Pets was going to be my guess for that band name. Now for our new segment, Jim Lumbo, where Jim regales us with tales of watching Columbo. What Columbo are you on, Jim?
Oh, that's long over. I don't know. I cut off. Well, geez, how long ago? It has been a while.
A couple months. Yeah.
I've stopped watching. Well, I got to the earlier ones. I've kind of stopped at the whatever. There was the break, and then they started again in the '80s. He started making them again, and I haven't gotten through those again yet. So, we were talking about seeing. Rick and I had just seen. Well, you'd mentioned you saw a clip or something, or one of the episodes, and it was with Jamie Lee Curtis in one of the episodes. Not late. It was the 70s Columbo episodes, and it's probably one of her first acting gigs.
What's the length of her hair in the?
She's a waitress, so her hair's tied back. In a coffee shop makes Columbo give up his donut because he bought it from outside, brought it in. He's meeting this guy, and it's outside food, and so she's very stern with him. And
I can almost hear her doing it. Like, you can't eat that in here.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And then he orders a donut. Of course, he's like, well, what She gives him a menu, and it's I guess I'll have a donut. But she's just scowling at him through the whole thing. It's great.
I just saw an episode, and I almost messaged you guys because I was so excited what I saw. But there was the Gina Rollins episode, or what is her name? Jenna
Rollins,
where she's in the. That must have been the one. And who else is in that? Robert Wagner, right? No. I saw the Robert Wagner
combining
one.
them all together. That's the problem.
Yeah.
No, it's she's the famous actress who plays her mother, the famous Hollywood star.
Jenna Rollins.
Or is that? I'm combining the other ones.
That's
no. That's
Janet Leigh's mother. No, Janet Leigh.
Janet Leigh is Jamie Lee Curtis's mom.
There's the Janet Leigh one where she does the acrobatic thing.
Right. She climbs out down the tree. She kills the guy.
I've watched a few of them.
But no. There's we were talking about Grandma Goop. Yeah,
Blythe Danner.
It's the Blythe Danner episode. She's Blythe Danner, and somebody the famous Hollywood star plays Blythe Danner's mom. So I was calling her Grandma Goop because she's Blythe Danner's mom. But
Great Grandma Goop, then.
Great Grandma Goop. I always say that when I stub my toe.
Myrna Loy or somebody like that?
Myrna Loy.
Loy.
I think I saw that one. And
I think that's the John Cassavetes episode.
Yeah, okay.
So Blythe Danner plays John Cassavetes' wife.
Right.
He murders Blythe Danner.
And then there's the one with the guy from Fahrenheit 451.
Yes.
That's that one.
Who's also in the spy who came in from the cold.
Yeah. He looks like David Hemmings, but he's the French David Hemmings.
Right. And he plays German guys.
Yeah.
Oscar Werner.
Oscar Werner, yeah.
And he's
and who's
he's got cameras in his house, and it's all automated, and he films there, and he has a tape loop, a video loop, and to mask his murder.
So one of them has Mary Fran. Mary Fran shows up, who's the wife in Newhart.
Right.
Is that the one that has Mary Fran? I'm trying to remember. Oh, they're just all.
No.
What an amazing show.
Actually, that's the Jenna Rollins is the Oscar Werner. Jenna Rollins is in a wheelchair.
Jenna Rollins?
Rollins. Gina Rollins or Jenna Rollins.
Jenna Rollins. I was watching The Penguin which is actually pretty damn good. Have you guys seen any of The Penguin yet?
No.
Before you talk about it, how long was he in the makeup chair every day?
We've gone over that.
It's my favorite thing to hear an actor talk about. I'd spend 5 hours a day in the chair getting my makeup on.
And then I always tell the story about how Tina Fey comes out and tells that story and then says, and I only spent 3 hours in the makeup chair today to play my role as human woman.
That's right.
But in The Penguin, his mom, because it's a very like Scorsese, because that's what all the DC universe now is, all just ripoffs of like Italian actors in their dark films of the 70s. He goes into his mom's house. He loves his mom, and he like goes into her house, and she's watching Gloria. She's watching the movie Gloria, and I think it's the scene right after she like blows away all those guys in the car,
yeah,
and
the car
then hails
rolls
the
over.
cab,
Yeah.
the kid. So that's the scene in The Penguin.
Wow.
I don't know. Penguin's pretty good, guys. I know.
Yeah.
I know. There's no way you'll watch it. But
I might. I just feel I'm not quite 100% on it, but I got that HBO Max subscription, so it's just kind of like I think I've run out of stuff to watch.
It'd be interesting for you to watch because it's got some time stuff in it. But I don't know. No, that stuff's all fake, right? Yeah, it's all Gotham, so it's not accurate to anything. All right, hot seat question for you, Rick. Are we allies?
Are you talking in general or just the two of us?
That's just the question.
Like between us?
It's however you want to interpret it.
Yes.
Okay. Jim, here's a question, I guess, for all of us. Is Found Jim's full name Found Jim Rewound?
Whoa, you just blew my mind.
And then if not, is his last name Jim?
It's kind of a David J. Kevin Haskins situation, right?
I guess I don't know who either of those people are.
It's David J. and Kevin Haskins from Bauhaus and Love and Rockets. They're brothers.
Oh yeah,
But
right.
David J. is David J. Haskins, and Kevin Haskins is Kevin Haskins.
It is one of those situations.
Yeah.
So yeah, now that you've explained that reference to me, I agree. So the question is Found Jim's full name Found Jim Rewound? If not, is his last name Jim? And if so, is Rick's last name Jim? And did he take the name Rewound when he married Rose Rewound?
Whoa.
Question's better than the answer. There's no way.
Wow, and
Let's
that
just leave it
answer
there.
was
Yes.
better than the question.
Yeah.
Oh, Jim, you did it again. All right, here's the segment, Careless. This is a segment where we admit to carelessly breezing by a connection that we should have made in the context of a previous episode. So on a previous episode, we joked about Love Boat being 5 seasons long. It was actually 10 seasons long. 1977 to 1987. That seemed remarkably long to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I watched the boat episode of Columbo, or I watched part of it. Dean Stockwell with the
Right.
crazy hair.
Right.
Hippie, or
He's he's the suspect,
yeah.
but he didn't do it.
He didn't.
Spoiler.
But Columbo starts
Columbo,
out with the murder,
You know
right?
exactly, of course.
Yeah.
There's no spoilers in Columbo.
Oh, yeah, and you had talked about it. Patrick McNee is the captain.
Yeah. It was a great idea. Whoever came up with that, whichever ad exec at Princess Cruises or at the TV station. Yeah, whoever.
Well, Adam Sandler will do films in great locations and just take all his friends and make a bad movie, like in Hawaii. And they just, for everything, when you go and interview these people about these horrible films and you expect them to go, it was a slog, they're like, oh, it was amazing. Yeah, it was like we were making Grown Ups 2 and we just all had the best time. And you're like, really? Because it's a terrible movie.
I heard Nicolas Cage talking about Wild at Heart, right, the David Lynch movie, and he was talking about how strange it is watching the movie and how dark that movie is and how wonderful, he said, the whole experience was. It was like how this darkness came out of this beautiful, joyful experience, he said. It was like, wow.
Well, it was an amazing movie. And I just watched Lost Highway. I'd never seen that movie before. And I couldn't believe how cheap it looked compared to Wild at Heart because it came after Wild at Heart. And it was more budget. It cost more to make that movie.
And is Ben Gazzara in Lost Highway, or is Ben Gazzara, where's the one where speaking of, Jenna Rollins and John Cassavetes and Peter Falk, I lump Ben Gazzara in there too.
Yeah.
He's part of their crew. The limousine. Isn't that Ben Gazzara? Oh, no, it's not.
It's got to be in
Is
one of
he?
those.
Yeah.
No, it's Robert Blake.
No, Robert Blake is
Lost
in it.
Highway.
There's a scene with a car, like somebody, like road rage kind of thing. I remember I thought it was Ben Gazzara, but maybe I'm mixing that up.
Is it Mulholland Drive
Oh, maybe.
that you're thinking of?
Yeah, probably.
Because the films are very similar.
Yeah.
One is, I think, about losing your mind, and one is about your last moments alive.
Mm.
Definitively, I know that definitively that's what each of those films are about.
And what's Eraserhead about?
I'll have to go watch it again. I just remember watching that movie. What is it about?
It's about parenthood.
That's right. Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Oh, yeah, there is a weird baby thing in there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty dominant part of the movie. Yeah.
Like the crib. I watched it in high school, so I can't remember. Right? Is that timing right? Or did I watch it?
Sure.
Did I come home from college and watch it?
Maybe.
I remember loving it, though. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm looking at, but I really like it.
Mm-hmm.
Except for that woman in the radiator. It upsets me, that sound when she's stepping on the
little squid things.
Yeah.
No, the worst is when the baby dies, you know.
Oh, yeah.
The alien baby coughing up.
I don't
It's
remember.
horrific.
Go watch it again.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like I should watch it again, but then I also feel like I never want to see it again.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. It's like, I was like, I'm really glad I watched this movie. I really enjoyed it. I'll never watch it again.
Yeah.
It's not a rewound. It wouldn't pass the rewound test.
Mm-hmm. Watching it as a teenager, it's like fine, but it's one of those like later, like as you get older, it's like the things I remember watching. And it was like, I don't know. I don't think I want to see that again.
In fact, I had a conversation with a professor who did film, not quite a film professor, but had taught film classes. And it was like talking about Blue Velvet. And he was like, he hadn't watched it in years and then showed it to a class. And then he was like, ooh, I don't think this is appropriate anymore. I think this is, kind of jumped the shark, or like, he didn't say that, but it was just like, ooh, this isn't the way I remember it, or my perspective on the world has changed. And now this seems creepy.
Well, I remember it always being creepy.
It was always creepy, yeah.
I mean, that whole Isabella Rossellini stuff was...
But he almost felt like it was verging on abuse, having the students watch it.
Oh.
Right? Where it was like, oh, this seems more like abusive than...
Well, because we didn't understand the concept of triggering people. I have friends of different races, colors, creeds, whatever. In college, you remember the house we all grew up in. Jim, grew up in. There's an 8-bedroom house that we all lived in college, and there's 7 of us, and it was a very diverse group of friends.
House you became a man in?
Yeah, I became a man. We're not talking about that. So I don't think I am a man, to be honest, because of these type of stories. But we all let each other have it for whatever, our various differences were. And you look back at it now and you're like, I wonder if saying that to that person, even though we were laughing about it, triggered something. Like they probably dealt with that for real from somebody, and it probably really hurt. Yeah. But we just never thought about things in that context. It was like, I don't know. I'm not going to go into that.
There's probably going to be a future I apologize, full episode maybe, where you just run through everything that you've said to people. Is that a spin-off? Maybe that'll be a backdoor pilot here.
Right.
Full I apologize. Just hours.
All right, color me impressed. Last segment, I think. Yeah, before we go into what we've been watching, I wanted to mention that I recently saw the Bully Pulpit in Chicago, and it was awesome. That new album is fantastic, and their live show is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Blew my mind. Best I've ever seen them, and I've seen them play incredibly well. I've seen them play for 30 years now, and every time I see them, I like them. They're just on a whole nother level.
So you're saying they're consistent?
They're consistently getting better. That's the enviable thing. It's like famously on this podcast, all of our listeners have heard.
At least one.
Me talk about Soul Asylum and how I thought their early records were their best records. Of course, I apologized for that later, for saying that later. But this is a band where I earnestly think they keep getting better, which, that's what you want, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Speaking of which, Richard Normal Valentine is up to his old tricks. His new digital 7-inch is great. It's his best to date, and all of these singles that he's been putting out have been fantastic. Side A, original song called Close the Eyes, is a sonic joy with phenomenal Tony Banks-esque keyboard solo, a phenomenal Tony Banks-esque keyboard solo. Every second is a blast. And then side B is a cover of Big Dipper's Lunar Module. And for those that don't know, Big Dipper we were talking earlier about how indie rock is kind of pop, had a lot of roots in pop. I feel like they were one of the poppier bands. They were focused on harmonies, which I don't think a lot of indie bands did a lot of back then. They were on Homestead, right? Was that the label?
And then they had a record on, they had a major.
They did do, it was like the last record, right? But Richard Normal Valentine actually improves on a song that was near perfect to begin with, and his vocals are even better than Big Dipper's. And how dare you say
I don't like that.
I would absolutely say that.
And I'd also like to apologize to Tony Banks.
Hey, you know what? Never apologize to Tony
actually,
Banks.
he's the jerk in the band. I know. Yeah, I've seen interviews with him.
Never apologize to Tony Banks. Anyway, such an intense build of tension with a mind-blowing sonic release. It was incredible. And it reminded me of Thoughts Detecting Machines. So they're similar people. The band.
Here we go. Okay.
Similar members. And then
different laptop.
And Thoughts Detecting Machines would have all these great songs. And then there was like one particular set of songs where they cracked the code. It was like they kind of went over the sonic hump. They took it to a new level. And that's what I think has happened here with Richard Normal Valentine. And then the last thing I'll say is I finally finished reading the book Play Like a Man.
Oh, wow.
Written by Rose Marshak. And I loved it. So I was reading it first because it was a friend of mine and they wrote a book and you got to read your friend's book.
Do you? Do you really? You could just say amazing book.
Hey, I looked my name up in the appendix. The first thing I did was I looked my name up in the index and then I read the paragraph on me. No, then I read it and I was like, oh, I really, this is like a book about one of my favorite bands. And so I got really excited to read it. And I actually liked, not actually like, that sounds terrible. I really liked the narrative because I don't like, I was reading Enter Naomi. Who wrote that? Jay Carducci?
Oh.
John Carducci?
Yeah, he wrote that other, I have his other book about indie rock or like the SST era or something.
Yes.
Joe Carducci.
Joe Carducci. And this one is about the woman who took a lot of photos of all the bands in the scene of that era. So that post-punk and punk. So I guess punk and post-punk era. Naomi, she's passed away and he wrote a book in tribute to her. And he did a similar thing with the narrative where he just kind of jumped all around and included various pieces of writing that were written at different times. Rose does a really similar thing, except Rose's book makes a hell of a lot more sense. I mean, the Joe Carducci book is cool because Naomi was cool, but I think Rose does a good job of sort of doing somewhat of an abstract narrative, but then pulling it all together with the chapter structure.
Rock and the Pop Narcotic is that first Joe Carducci book. He was the SST guy. Yeah, he's name-checked in a Minutemen song. Carducci, or maybe it's a Fire Hose song. Carducci says or something.
Yeah.
Oh.
I feel like he is.
Yeah.
Or maybe it says it on the record. Like, oh, maybe it's Carducci wants another record.
Project Mersh or something.
Yeah.
No, that's not.
Or
No.
yeah.
But he's
something
definitely
like
SST
that.
guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he worked in the offices of SST for a while.
Kansas City. Food-wise, once only known as a barbecue town. But thanks to the Taco the Town podcast, everything has changed. Kansas City has rightfully taken its place as a taco paradise, smack dab in the middle of the USA. And all of these tacos belong to us on the Taco the Town podcast. My name is W. David Keith, certified tacoholic, and I live a very taco-centric lifestyle. On the Taco the Town podcast, we're tasting every taco in the town. We shine a light on all of the taco-rific tacos Kansas City has to offer, unearthing great taco memories, checking the latest stories in taco news, and interviewing actors, reporters, chefs, politicians, and musicians about their love for tacos. If you love tacos like I do, you're gonna love Taco the Town. Available wherever you get your taco podcasts. A proud member of the Lotus Pod Podcasting Network.
Jim, what have you been watching or consuming?
Kukla, Fran, and Ollie.
All right. Why were we talking about Kukla, Fran, and Ollie? I feel
just
like that
brought
came
it up, I think, at Christmas.
Yeah.
I just found, there's like I think it's an official YouTube channel of Kukla. I don't know. It can't be official. I don't know who owns this stuff, but it seems like it's kind of an official Kukla, Fran, and Ollie.
Was it a WGN Ray Rayner?
No, it's
No.
way earlier. It's a Chicago thing.
Oh, wait, Kukla, Fran, and Ollie wasn't a Ray Rayner segment?
No, it was a puppet show.
Really?
Earlier television?
1952 it started, I think.
It was Chicago, right?
Yeah.
But then it was national, right?
At this time, I think this stuff is it's like 1952. It's NBC. It's national, I think, or they talk about it in the episode. So I think some of it was delayed because they talk about it's all done pretty not live, but there's like a Christmas episode or whatever, New Year's, and so but then they apologize for something about the kinetoscope, or there's like obviously this delayed release with kinescope or something. So certain markets get it later. So they always address that in these episodes. It's like, well, sorry if it's already, it's like whatever, 3 weeks past, Thanksgiving or something. They're doing a Thanksgiving episode because obviously they were being released later on these kinetoscope, kinescope, whatever, the filmed television thing. It's a puppet show. It's Burr Tillstrom. And he was, it was in Chicago, but it was national, and it was they had a radio show too, which is a crazy thing. It's like Charlie McCarthy, right?
Yeah.
How he was a radio show. He was a ventriloquist.
On the radio.
Yeah, it's insane. It's like, how do you have a ventriloquist on there?
Well, I'll be starting my ventriloquism podcast pretty soon, and you'll be amazed that you won't be able to see that it's me.
So it's the same thing as this Kukla, Fran, Ollie. They had a radio show, but they were puppets, and with Burr Tillstrom. Well, Fran Allison was a real person. She was like a singer.
Not a puppet.
Yeah, she's a singer and radio. She was kind of a radio star herself, I think. But I remember this as a child because they had these shows on for years, and they do usually, I think it was like Christmas specials in Chicago, especially. I don't know if it was as much a national thing by the 70s, but I remember these in the 70s being on like, NB Channel 5 or something, and they'd have a Christmas special. And it was Kukla, Fran, and Ollie, but it was something that my parents watched or when they were children, or it went on for decades, and into the 70s. And we actually went and saw them perform live at the Goodman Theater, like in the 80s, like early 80s, did a show without Fran Allison. It was just Kukla and Ollie, the puppets, and Burr Tillstrom. And they're really interesting. They're really early television, but it's a lot of improv. The problem is the audio isn't great, so you have to turn it up because there's a lot of kind of muttering and jokes, and he's constantly riffing. And he's doing he does the characters. He's like doing two characters at once usually. That's about all he can do, maybe three. But he's talking to Fran Allison too, and she is rolling with it too. It's I don't know how they would do it if they'd have like a loose outline, whatever. But it's all just improvised and just kind of joking around.
It wasn't one like a goose with like a really...
No. That's
Garfield.
That's
Goose.
Garfield.
Oh,
that is
that's
later.
That's Ray Rayner.
Yeah. This is a dragon.
Is that what I'm
No,
mixing
well,
up?
that's Fraser Thomas. That's
Oh man, I got
and
it
what's
all blended
deeply
together.
disturbing about Fraser Thomas and Garfield Goose is if you watch that, Garfield Goose and what's the rabbit's name? Fraser, not Fraser. Oh, what was the rabbit called?
Yeah.
Those puppets don't talk.
Yeah.
It's all Fraser Thomas talking to the puppets. Like Garfield Goose will go,
Oh, and they
clap,
clap,
clap, clap, clap, clap.
Yeah, that's right.
and then Fraser Thomas would go, "Oh, really, Garfield? You're feeling hungry today? Did you eat breakfast? Clap, 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 clap."
And what's amazing is that when his friends saw that on TV, they said, that's when we realized he had lost his mind.
Exactly.
When a cardboard goose clapped at him, he understood what it said.
It's just one man, creating, and they're puppeteers, but he's creating the whole thing. But this Burr Tillstrom, he's actually interacting with
he's doing
real human
voices. Even though there's one character called Cecil Bill who just goes doi 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 doi. So it's kind of like the clack 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 clack, but he's expressive, but he just goes doi doi doi.
And Chris, just a note to you as you're editing this, I want you to take out Jim saying
voices
in that moment earlier. It was beautiful. There was just that one moment where he said
voices.
It was lower. Just this is a note to the
You want
editing.
me to take it out?
I want you to separate it out and maybe repeat it or put it at the end of the episode.
Okay, got it.
Voices.
It'll be amazing.
He did do that.
Yeah,
It did sound
it was
good.
amazing.
Yeah, we'll have to get that.
It's like a sample.
We'll put it. It'll be on one of the songs in the EP. The song will be called
Voices.
A while ago, a Kukla, Fran, and Ollie Tootsie Roll ad. So because Chicago Tootsie Rolls, but it was for mint midgies. And I was like, it's from like the 70s. And I'm like, I need to have a mint midgie. So mint flavored Tootsie Rolls.
Wow.
And it's like they haven't made them since the 70s, but it's like what I would give, like if somebody finds one in their attic, a bag in their attic, it's like I want to try.
Behind a wall.
Yeah.
Somehow that's always when they're renovating, tearing out a wall, there's like some junk that somebody, like bags of food, somebody dumped in there.
There was, you probably had a few of these beers, Jim. Rhinelander, when you visited us in Columbia, Missouri, there was a liquor store, and the liquor store owner found cases of this stuff just in the back of a warehouse. He's like, I don't know how old it is. And it was like $3 for a case of beer in bottles, Rhinelander, and it really tasted like soot water.
Yeah.
But like I would have girls over and I would impress them with like bottled beer. Like, oh, wow, bottled beer. Yeah. So I'd like cook a steak and a potato, baked potato, and give them a Rhinelander and be like,
30-year-old bottle of beer.
yeah, have a 30-year-old bottle of beer. I think it made everybody sick.
Yeah.
But after you get drunk on it, though.
New Old Stock beer. It's not a good
NOS.
thing. NOS beer.
I don't know the term new old stock. Is that
It's
a
just
term
like
for
anything like on eBay. It's just if you find something vintage that's been just sitting in a warehouse.
Oh, okay.
Like, and it's sealed. It's like in the original packaging, and it was never sold, and it's just a warehouse
That's what
find.
this was,
That's new
yeah.
old stock, and yeah, new old stock beer. No, I don't.
Yeah, this beer had never been drank.
Yeah,
Rick, what have you been consuming as a student of media?
I'm looking at my movie list and I'm trying to pick one to mention. Well, I watched The New World, and I also watched The Thin Red Line.
Oh, Terrence Malick?
Terrence Malick, thank you. The New World, which was the one with the penguin in it.
The Penguin?
The penguin's in The New World.
What is The New World? It's a Terrence Malick movie?
Yeah, it's a Terrence Malick movie. It came out
The Batman
maybe
movie?
20 years ago. It's about Pocahontas and John
John
Smith.
John Smith, and I remember hearing, oh, it's not good, whatever, and Colin Farrell, with the long hair and everything like that. But I watched it and it was like, wow, that's amazing. It's a Terrence Malick movie, it's the same stuff. And then Christopher Plummer's in it for a bit. And I read an interview with Christopher Plummer. He was just so angry because he said he had done some great stuff.
It was cut.
Miles, yeah, and it's like he's barely in it. He shows up, and then there's one part where he's talking, and then it kind of fades out, and then they're showing, it's like the forest and everything, and he's just like, what the hell? I spent so much time on this, and I did these great performances, not in there. Apparently, he got a certificate or something from Kodak for shooting 1 million feet of film.
Wow.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
We should ask Christopher Plummer, did they take away, after they cut his scenes, did they come back and take some of that money that they paid him? Because I don't think they do.
I love Christopher Plummer. He's rest in peace, but he also, would forever complain about The Sound of Music.
What was his complaint about The Sound of Music?
It's a shitty movie. He hated the movie. Hates it.
What about the Kukla, Fran, and Ollie inspired sequence with the goats? Not like that sequence?
I would love to hear Christopher Plummer talk about Kukla, Fran, and Ollie. He probably was still in Canada, right? Well, maybe not. I watched this interesting movie, Hundreds of Beavers.
Oh, that's supposed to be really good. That was mentioned on Tooth and Claw as well.
Okay,
Hundreds of Beavers.
yeah. It was a little stretched, the kind of silent film-esque movie about a guy trying to survive as a trapper in the not the Northwest. It's like Upper Michigan. Black and white, a weird mashup of like Buster Keaton and video games, and has this retro look to it, and silent title cards and stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
I need to see Hundreds of Beavers.
Independently, shot and put together on computer. Obviously, it's got computer effects, but it looks old. It looks 100 years old. And then on the other side, Nosferatu, which was okay.
It was good looking, but
Yeah.
the plot was
That same plot.
standard.
That same Dracula plot.
Yeah, uninspired.
Yeah, I just is Dracula really that interesting? I mean, I want there to be a updating.
I've heard about someone talking about Dracula recently on something, but not the movies, but the book, and how.
Book is
It's-
fantastic.
But is it kind of like? Am I thinking? Yeah, it's kind of like slow going, or they were talking about how it has to do with real estate or something. It's like kind of. It's of course it's about business, some deals,
Yeah.
and it's like this long.
Well,
And it takes a while to get going, and it's this creepy guy. He shows up, and
I I read it in is it called Victorian novels? I forget what the type of novel
Gothic?
it is. Yeah, Gothic novel. So
Yeah.
I read it in a Gothic novel class where most of what we read was, what's the legendary one? It's so boring. I'm not going to remember the name. Some girl's name or some woman's name, I should say. I can't remember the name. Emma is a Jane Austen novel.
Right, but that's earlier.
That's later.
Or is it? Okay.
This is back when they were really long and boring. And and Dracula was interesting because it was, I mean, some of those novels were compelling. You just have to, it takes a long time to really get into them. So I read like 3 or 4 of those novels and I'm like, oh my God, and this is like moving like molasses and they're really long, 700 pages. Then Dracula comes along and it's like, I don't know, 500 pages. It has a bunch of those elements to it, but it's interesting and it moves at a faster pace after you've been reading these like super slow, boring books. If you really get into Dracula, it's a really, really good book. Mm-hmm. So the Nosferatu movies kind of borrow sections of it. The first Nosferatu was a knockoff of the book, and they kind of tried to hide the fact that it was based on, or sort of loosely veiled that it's based on Dracula. And then Herzog just remakes that movie. And I love both of those movies. They're really interesting, compelling, and creepy. But this is like, it's just the same thing. It's like just a guy who has, and I'm starting to think that all of his films are just really good-looking films with a very vapid plot. Right? Like I look back at The Witch, and I'm like, okay, nothing really happened in that movie. It was shorter, and I enjoyed it, and there's no story or anything. There's nothing really interesting or compelling about it. It's a story, but it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, and the Norseman, I'm trying to remember, or Northman, what is it called?
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Kind of had the same thing, where it's like, it's just beautiful.
Atmospheric.
Yeah, and capturing, like, to me, it seemed like, this is what Vikings really looked like, right?
Right.
As opposed to all the stereotypes. Like, no one was wearing a helmet with horns, right?
It's like when an art director / cinematographer, as we say on the show, gets the chance to make a movie. They make a beautiful film, but they forget that movie. There's a story you got to tell, and people have to be interested in the story.
And it's The Lighthouse kind of the same way, right?
Yeah, The Lighthouse is the same way. So sorry, Eggers. I guess we just lost him as a guest.
Thumbs down.
Anything else, Rick, that you want to call out?
I've been listening to this great podcast called Sorry Eggers. Complete Unknown. I watched The Complete Unknown. It's tied in. Friend of the show, Bob Dylan.
That's an indie flick you saw there. With, what was the star of that?
Timothée Chalamet.
Chalamet. Is he a good actor? Is he new on the scene?
Yes, yeah. I thought, I haven't particularly I'm not a big Dune fan. And so, I thought he did a good job. The young man did a very good job in the film.
Okay.
He's an impressive young man.
I've heard your review of this film in a couple different formats. Face-to-face conversation. I've heard you say it on other podcasts. Now I've heard it here. How kind you're being to this film makes me think this might be a good film. But then again, I watched Pineapple Express.
Okay, here we go.
And I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think I would have ever seen this in that film. I think I would have watched that film without hearing your review and thought, this film is lame. I think that would be, except I liked Danny McBride's performance. That would be my take on it. Like, I don't know what these guys were doing. And then when I look at it through the lens of a guy who loves, what's that Babs movie?
What's Up, Doc?
What's Up, Doc?
Yeah.
I then I was like, that's what they were doing. They were doing that kind of comedy.
It's a screwball comedy.
Yeah. And then I started thinking about some of those Richard Pryor films that I've never seen and all those movies of that era. And I'm like, that's what's going on here, is they're just doing a screwball comedy, and I really enjoyed it. I was like, I get it now.
And it's a David Gordon Green movie. So the guy who did like George Washington, have you ever seen that? I mean, he started out as this indie director. What's this other film? Like his first couple of indie films, and then now, makes films that aren't indie films. But the one about kids, is it in Louisiana? That's very Terrence. It's like one of the first films I saw where it's like Terrence Malick has become, and not a genre, kind of a genre, and it was like just seeing someone directly Malicky. Right.
Like what's the Malick movie with Sissy Spacek?
Badlands.
Badlands, right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so I can only think that this Bob Dylan movie is good, given your review of it.
Yeah.
So I won't even bother watching it. I'll just say I enjoyed it. It's good. Should see it.
And then I watched Real Pain, Jesse Eisenberg movie with a Culkin, Kieran Culkin. They're two cousins who go on a tour of Poland, a Holocaust tour, I guess you would call it. That's financed by their dead grandmother. She put aside money for them to go on this tour. So it's about that, but then it's also about their two different personalities. And yeah, Macaulay Culkin, he just got nominated for an Academy Award for it. Manic, depressive, charismatic person, but also Kieran Culkin. Yeah. What did I say?
Macaulay.
Not Macaulay. Yeah. It wasn't Macaulay. No, it's Kieran. It's intense emotionally, but then it's also funny because it's about their dynamic. It's like a weird combination. I can't think of the secondary person director, but it's like a Jim Jarmusch movie, except with lots of talking. So it's like a talky Jim Jarmusch movie.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. Who would be the companion, like the indie companion alternate to Jim Jarmusch, where it's like talky movies, you know? I don't think it'd be like Hal Hartley or something, but it's like one of those kind of people talking movies.
Isn't Coffee and Cigarettes a talky movie?
Yeah, I guess Coffee and Cigarettes is a talky movie. I think of, Coffee and Cigarettes is kind of like, My Dinner with Andre. Whereas the talky thing is more, and Jennifer Grey is in it.
Really?
Yeah. And it's like, who is this woman? Who is this actress? And then I just had a chill and I was like, oh my God, I think it's Jennifer Grey. And I looked it up and it was.
She talks about how her nose job was the worst thing she did for her career.
Yeah, because she doesn't,
she was so
different.
Distinctive.
Yeah.
So is she good in it?
Yeah, she's great.
She dance in it?
No, she does not dance. Oh, she does dance a little bit. I
There
think
you
they
go.
do a little bit of dancing.
Of course they got her
Now I
dancing.
think about it.
Just like when Tarantino got Travolta to dance.
Yeah.
I just watched Pulp Fiction with my son. He had never seen it before. It blew his mind.
I just watched the Christmas Capital One ads with John Travolta dancing. Dressed as Santa.
Yeah. So Tarantino and then that Capital One director both got him back out of
And then Donna Pescow is in it too. Is in those commercials.
Right.
My family was totally nonplussed. I'm like, oh my God, it's also the woman from Saturday Night Fever. Donna Pescow shows up. She's in a store. She's like a storekeeper, and Santa Travolta walks in there, and he, kind of gives her a look or something, and it's like, oh my God. And what famous film reviewer owned one of the Travolta suits, one of the white suits?
I know.
Gene Siskel.
Yeah.
I watched some Siskel and Ebert today.
How are they doing?
Great. They look great. I was thinking about some of the tension because we make a lot of comments as I edit the episodes. So I always go back over all our conversations. And Rick in the last episode was debating whether or not, or actually it was in the fast forward, whether or not I'm gaslighting him. We kind of go back and forth. And I'm like feeling really bad. I'm like, I don't want this to be a form of tension between us. I want this to be a re-exploration of our friendship or an extension of our friendship. And then I was like watching Siskel and Ebert and I'm like, oh, those guys argued. Those guys argued all the time. So we're just doing that in the spirit of that show.
The shtick.
Yeah.
The reviewer shtick.
And then you sent us that clip where he calls him an asshole or something. Remember?
There are outtakes of them just trying to do a insert or something, or like coming up next,
Right.
and they're just going at each other and talking about like Siskel's insulting Ebert about his weight and stuff, and
and he's like, you see what I have to deal, like he like one of them walks off and he's like, you see this, like it's not me, it's this guy.
They were really mean to each other.
That's depressing though. I don't like to think about them not liking each other.
Newspaper guys, competing newspapers, shit talking, all that kind of stuff you were talking about, male insensitive, giving people a hard time.
I was talking about, we always would laugh when we did that. It wasn't, we didn't really hate each other.
Right.
But that's taking a little too far. I'll just mention two things. I watched The Substance.
Ugh.
Did you see that?
I can't. I don't think I can. I've
I
talked
think
to
it would be
people
a
about
tough
it.
watch for
Yes,
you.
I just even people starting to talk about it.
It's dark. This Coralie Fargate makes the most male-gazy feminist films I've ever seen in my life. It was really good. There were some real big revelations as I watched that film. But it was a hard watch. And an easy watch at times. So, because I also saw Revenge, I think was her other recent film. It was the same thing. There was a lot of feminist thought and messaging in it, but then at the same time, there's a lot of male gazy stuff too. And then I watched My Old Ass, which is a Megan Park film. She's a Canadian director. She was originally an actor and now a director, and I thought it was amazing. I thought it was really good, really sweet.
And it's okay that the characters don't look like each other.
Yeah, you're kind of always thinking about it from that perspective, but I liked it. Like, you're making a low budget film, and she wasn't going to use. You should love that.
Yeah, no,
There's no
I'm gonna watch it.
de-aging or no reconfiguration of their faces or anything. It was just like, here's two very talented actors acting against each other. The situation is they're the same person. Deal with it. Aubrey Plaza was they were both fantastic. Both actors were amazing in it, and it has a very sweet and somewhat sad ending. That's it. That's all I got. So, Jim, why don't you tell us? You don't have to tell about the film because we'll do that in the next episode. But what is the name of the film and why'd you pick it?
I'm looking at his face and I don't think he remembers. It's been so long.
Oh, no.
Since
Yeah,
we
it's been a
started.
while.
No. We're going to watch The Brother from Another Planet from 1984, John Sayles movie. It's Mars on the Hudson. It's Cheers goes to Harlem. It's E.T. rides the Underground Railroad.
Wow.
He's got radar for a mind, removable eyes, and a lovable smile.
Wow.
Those aren't my words, okay? But those are the words of the...
Sounds like you. Sounds like something you'd say.
That's the official trailer. That's on, if you look at the IMDb page, that, the videos show up on the top of the movie page, and it's the first, the advertising blurb that was shown in theaters when it came out, and it's pretty incredible. But some of those are quotes, I think, from reviews, positive reviews. I think one of but it was just like, it's the guy reading it like that. He's like, it's Cheers or Cheers in Harlem, and but
Cheers, man.
Yeah, the bar scenes. Yeah,
it's right. Yeah, there's stuff that happens in a bar. Oh, yeah.
It's an amazing preview. It's much more than that, obviously. It's about an alien escaped slave, crash lands on Earth and tries to get by. He crash lands in New York City, and it's about his adventures surviving the mean streets of New York in 1984.
I'm excited. Let's get to it.
Lost and Found and Rewound is fully funded by Lost and Found and Rewound Foundation funds. Lost and Found and Rewound does not use crowdfunding because our listeners have better things to do with their funding. There's no need to post reviews of Lost and Found and Rewound because our listeners have more valuable things to do with their time. In all sincerity, thank you for listening to the show. We truly appreciate it.
Lotus Pod.
Voices.